We're recording. Again, thank you so much, Sky. By the way, I even have a note down here on my computer. Okay, so as I was saying, John has tremendous passion for animal advocacy, as well as skills in terms of communication. And I first came upon him, and I have to credit my wife for this, because when I first started at Shamayim, my wife, Lori, who's much more involved and was much more kind of into Twitter than I was, kind of started following all these people. And she found this person and she said to me, Jonathan, you really got to follow this guy. And I'd be like, yeah, of course. Now, I rarely say yes, and not actually do what she says, but this was one of those times. And so she bugged me about it. And about a week or two later, I started following. And I was so impressed with the way John was able to communicate the things that I felt so passionately, but be able to do so to so many people and so effectively. His messages were warm, open, inviting, exploratory, and also challenging, because the images, while not overboard, would force me to think, and really reinforced for me also a lot of the decisions that I've been making these past few years of my life. So it is a pleasure to be able to share the space with John. And at this point in time, we'll turn things over to you. We'll keep things muted until we do the Q&A, and then we will ask people if they want to unmute, or if you want to send a question to me, you may do so in the chat. John, it is a pleasure to be able to share this space with you. Thank you so much for giving us of your time and of your learning today.
Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much for having me. This is a real pleasure to be here with a lot of animal heroes. So this is exciting for me. So I've been looking forward to this for a while, and I know we've the date has bounced around once or twice, and so I'm so stoked to finally be here with all of you. So now I want to share my screen with you all. So if you just hold on one second. Jonathan, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Thought I'd done that already.
Cool. Can you see this okay? Jonathan, everything looks good? Okay, cool. Great. You muted yourself, so I didn't hear you. Now I see you. Okay, awesome. Cool. So I am very happy to be here with all of you amazing people. So again, I want to say thank you for your time and for the work that you all do for animals. Whether you are a full-time activist or you don't do any activism at all, I don't care. I am grateful for you. The animals are grateful for you. You are making the world a better place for animals. Even just through the foods that you choose to eat. Activism can look very different to a lot of different people, and it can be gone at from so many different angles. And so whatever angle you choose, I just want to say thank you, and I'm very excited to chat with you all today. So I'm going to talk quickly about how I got my start in animal advocacy, and then I'll go into kind of the presentation. And my overall presentation should be 30 to 45 minutes. Going to try not to go over 45 minutes. So if I hit that 8:45 mark, or 5:45 on the West Coast, I will try and stop myself. So anyway, so my name is John Oberg, and I am a lifelong animal advocate. But it wasn't until much later in my life that I actually started doing advocacy on a full-time basis. So I think that a lot of times we can think that people who do animal advocacy essentially just flip a light switch and then suddenly they're vegan activists. And that's often not actually how it goes. Usually it's a few things here and there over the course of time that lead you to become the person who you are today. And so for me, it was a handful of things. And one of the quintessential moments, or the defining moments of my childhood that really led me to become a full-time animal advocate many years later, was when I was about 10, I think like 9 or 10 in like 1996, 1997. My mom and I, she was really poor, or we were really poor, and she wanted to help us make ends meet. And so what we did was we would go to a park nearby. You can see a park in the background there. And every morning we would go from can to can, from garbage can to garbage can, and get these aluminum bottles or aluminum cans out of the trash cans. And in the state of Michigan, which is where I'm from, you can get 10 cents for a can. And at the time, it was the only state where you get 10 cents for a deposit. And so on a good day, you could get, maybe 20, maybe $30 in cans by doing this for a few hours. And so my mom and I would do this in the early mornings before school. And there was nobody at this park, but what we did find was that there were plenty of deer. And it was really a beautiful moment that my mom and I could share with these deer early in the morning every day, eating the grass and just chilling. And they became kind of our friends. And we really look forward to these mornings. We look forward to as much as you can look forward to going from trash can to trash can, reaching in there and finding cans. We really found this to be meaningful. And my mom had just gotten out of an abusive marriage, and so her and I were like, on this mission together to make ends meet. And so one day we found out that this park was going to hunt these deer who had never been hunted before. They had been basically given free rein in this park for years, maybe decades, and we were just dumbfounded. We were so hurt to see this. And so, as a 9 or 10-year-old kid, I was upset about it, but I didn't think I could do anything. But my mom, being the badass who she was, she said, John, we have to do something about this. And so she took me, and we would go to the entrance and exits of this park day after day, even in the cold winter months. We would hold signs saying, stop the hunt and being cruel isn't cool. And we got media attention, which is what you're seeing. This is actually a picture I took with my phone of watching an old VHS tape that my grandparents had recorded on our local news channel back in like 96, 97. And anyway, so we did this day in and day out, and it really meant something to us, but unfortunately our cries fell on deaf ears, and eventually the hunt went on. And it was something that really, really left an impact on me. And fortunately, that left an impact on me to help guide my advocacy in the future, although it wasn't successful in that moment. And so what this incident taught me is that, when you see an injustice happening in the world, you can stand up to it. Because, and my mom taught me that, like if I just done it my way, I would have done nothing, because I was 10 years old and, all I cared about was like professional wrestling and hot pockets, so it really meant something to me to have that moment with my mom. And so let's fast forward a number of years to I think this is 2008. No, 2009. And I went vegan, and I became a vegan activist. So the picture you saw before, I was like 9 or 10. Here I was in my early 20s. And so I basically wanted to get active for animals. I didn't know what that meant, okay? If you would have told me that jumping off a roof, as long as you didn't hurt yourself, jumping off a roof would save animals, I would do it. I didn't know what I could do to make the world a better place for animals. But I learned about this thing called leafletting, and it was being done locally. I was going to college in Arizona, so Arizona State University, which you can see on the right-hand side, is where I got my start handing out leaflets. And I was going to college at the time, and I did this on a volunteer basis for a number of years, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it's weird, but I really enjoyed handing people paper. And so I did this for a few years, volunteering while I was in college. Then when I graduated from college, they hired me full time. This organization called Vegan RH hired me to travel around North America handing out leaflets on college campuses. And so I did that for a while. I handed out leaflets all across North America, like hundreds of colleges and universities and like 35 US states, maybe like 5 Canadian provinces, so all over the place, handing out paper. And I loved it. Then my mom got sick. She was diagnosed with stage 4 small cell lung cancer in 2013. And so I took a hiatus from my job to take care of her full time. And she was given like 6 to 9 months to live. And so I certainly wasn't going to be working during this time. So I took care of her full time. And then while I was taking care of her, she was actually doing pretty well. And so Vegan Outreach offered me the position to take over the social media for Vegan Outreach, because obviously I couldn't travel around North America handing out leaflets, right? I was stuck at home. And so I reluctantly agreed to take on the social media presence for Vegan Outreach. So I ran their social media, their Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on. And so I would be sitting there in my chair next to my mom's bed, and we'd be watching TV together, and I would be, doing my social media thing from behind a computer screen. And I actually, on a good day of handing out leaflets, I would hand out a couple thousand leaflets. Okay. I mean, that was, I felt really good about it. And I know that was very effective. And I know it was effective because I hear from people all the time, like, oh, I got a leaflet from you before, and now I'm vegan, and so on. So I knew what I was doing was good, important work. Couldn't do it from there, but I was able to take on the social media. And what I quickly realized is that in one good day of social media advocacy, I could reach as many people as I would in an entire lifetime of handing out leaflets, and a lot cheaper too. They didn't cost anything. So I was like, wow, I'm sold. And so I continued running their social media. And my mom, she did a lot better than 6.5 months or 6 to 9 months. Unfortunately, she did eventually pass away from the cancer. She died after 2.5 years of me taking care of her, but we had a lot of really good memories in that time. And I look back finally on that time, being able to take care of her, and also being able to venture into this new form of advocacy. So now my advocacy these days looks a lot less fun and sexy than handing out leaflets traveling around North America. Now it's behind a computer or a phone or a computer. And apparently I look angry when I do this. I don't know why. But now this is how my advocacy looks these days. It's from behind a screen. And it is on social media. And so social media is where I now focus my animal advocacy. And I'll be talking more about social media as a platform for helping animals a little bit later in this presentation. So this presentation is going to be broken down into 3 parts, okay? It's going to be about talking to people you don't know, talking to people you do know, and then talking about social media advocacy. And the bulk of this presentation will be about social media advocacy because that is where my expertise lies. But I am very, very excited to talk about it because I really do believe that social media is a hugely underutilized tool for animal advocates. So feel free to take notes throughout this presentation, and Jonathan or anybody else, feel free to give me a virtual tap on the shoulder if I'm running a little bit too late. So first of all, let's talk about talking to strangers. So I realized I should have gave these subtitles a little bit different. Talking to strangers sounds really weird. So let's just rephrase this as talking to people you don't know, okay? So outreach. What does outreach look like talking to people who you don't know? It looks like talking on the streets to people you don't know. Maybe handing out leaflets and talking to people you don't know, or holding a sign and just engaging in conversation with people on the streets or on a busy sidewalk. Maybe on public transportation, if you're taking the bus or the train or the tram to work, and you start up a conversation with someone next to you. In the grocery store, one of my favorite things to do is when I'm at Whole Foods and I see another person at Whole Foods with our shopping cart full of great vegan products. I always like to say, oh, I love that vegan cheese or that vegan milk. And that's, or if I see somebody standing in front of all the plant-based milks and they look dumbfounded, that they have no clue what to do, I love to try and give people a little bit of guidance. Hey, this is really good. If you like this, maybe this is better. at a restaurant, whether it's talking to the server or talking to other patrons of the restaurant. And then, of course, on social media. So talking to strangers is a really big opportunity to make a difference for animals. Now, a couple of things I want you to remember when you're talking to people who you don't know. First of all, don't make them feel judged. And why is this important? Because they are on their own journey. You don't know what they know. You don't know what they don't know. You don't know almost anything about almost anybody, right? So to assume things is a poor strategy for being an effective advocate. And so it's important to remember that, unless you're a lifelong vegan, which the vast majority of vegans aren't, you were on a similar journey just a few years ago, maybe decades, but maybe at some point in your life, you were on a similar journey. And so it's important for that, for keeping that in mind, to be mindful of the 3 R's, okay? Being relatable, so getting people to be able to see themselves in you, which is why it's important for us to not come across as so overly radical, because if we do, most people are going to kind of tune us out. So it's important to kind of mainstream our message, even if that's a little bit less fun, even if it's a little bit less true to ourselves. It's important to be effective for animals. Also, be reasonable. So understand that most of your audience isn't going to go vegan overnight. So the person you're talking to on the subway, they're probably not going to go vegan after your conversation, but that's okay. You're going to do something to them. You're going to maybe chip away at the walls that they have up. For me, it was a culmination of 4, 5, 6, 7 things over the course of many, many years that ultimately led me to becoming a vegan activist. And then being rational just goes along with that as well. You got to put yourself in your audience's shoes. So as much as I would love to talk to everyone as if they're already vegan, most people aren't. 95% of the population isn't vegan or aren't vegan activists. And so it's important for us to talk to people like they are just people who, normal people. Remember that. My last slide on talking to people you don't know is don't word vomit at them. And what I mean by this, and sorry for the crude language, I just feel like that's the best way to phrase something that so many activists do. It's just to start just blabbering at people, just saying instead of having a conversation, often the conversations can go, you should really be vegan because of X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and just rattling off. And someone just listens to you and they kind of get turned off and just, maybe end the conversation, and then they walk away with a bad taste in their mouth. It's important to actually have a conversation with people. And a great way of doing that is asking questions. So there's something called the Socratic method, which is where you actually get people to critically think about their own stance. And what you will often find is that there is a ton of common ground with whoever you're speaking with. I've had conversations with hunters where I have found, so even with people who own farms, I've had conversations where I found so much common ground and we came to a consensus. Yes, they know that I'm not going to start farming tomorrow, and I know they're not going to go vegan tomorrow, but I found common ground, and there's something productive that came out of that on both of our sides. And when you engage in the Socratic method, you're asking people questions, you're getting people to see themselves in your shoes, and you're basically discovering that everybody is on the same page. And we are on the same page, right? It's like being against animal cruelty. Nobody says, oh yeah, animal cruelty, I'm fine with that. Everybody says animal cruelty, I don't want to do it. I don't care who you are. I mean, yes, there's this tiny, tiny portion of the population who are sociopaths or psychopaths who maybe don't have empathy, but the vast majority of people agree that animals don't or shouldn't suffer. And the vast majority of people can't really agree on anything. So to get them to agree on this is great. So that puts us in a pretty good position. And then the other thing I want to mention is to provide resources to people. So Veganuary and Challenge 22 are the two places I send people. And you might have other go-to places, and that's fine. Whatever you think are good resources to hand off to people, have them in the back of your mind. And I want to stress that you don't want to overwhelm them. Why? Because when people are given too many options, people will often choose none. And so don't just throw a book at someone. I mean, an actual book, you can hand somebody a book, sure, but don't give them like, dozens and dozens of resources, because it's going to be overwhelming. All right, and now talking to friends and family, take everything we just talked about, okay? Everything we just talked about is talking to strangers, apply that here, but then with the caveat that you rarely initiate conversations about animal rights and veganism. This might seem counterintuitive, but it's so important because, for one, it is going to lead to you having better relationships with your family and friends. I'll talk about that in a second. And number two, the big area of difference that you can make in the world is focusing on all the other people out there, outside of your household, outside of your bubble. All of those people you can reach in the ways we talked about earlier, and especially in social media, which we'll talk about later. And why is it important to not necessarily focus on just your friends and family? Well, especially if people are a captive audience, they're basically stuck there, like you're having lunch with a colleague or you're having dinner with your family, they're going to be automatically put on the defensive. And when you put people on the defensive, they're often not going to open up their hearts and minds to what you have to say. So the other thing is that they're eventually going to learn that you're vegan. I'm not saying hide the fact that you're a vegan activist from them, but they are certainly going to know you're vegan. I mean, there's a million jokes about people telling people that they're vegan, okay? Right? I mean, I do that all the time. I play soccer, and one of the pairs of socks I wear over my shin guards say vegan in huge letters. So like I'm guilty of it happily. I think that we should tell people we're vegan. But as far as like getting your friends and family to be open to the idea, they will come to you when they're ready. I can't tell you how many friendships I kind of threw a wrench into 12 years ago when I went vegan, because I word vomited at them, and then I just was probably too aggressive, and I wanted them to see the world like I saw it, and I did it in a crappy way. To be frank, I did it in a way that turned them off. And now, fortunately, years later, many of those same people are now actually vegan, or have now started reaching out to me about vegan recipes and so on. And I can't tell you how many other friends and family I've had reach out to me as a result. And then the last reason I want to say why it's so important to not overwhelm your friends and family with this is that having healthy relationships with your friends and family is so incredibly important, more important than arguably any other relationships you have, right? And so if you are putting that at risk because you want to try and veganize them, that could be potentially problematic. And you having a good relationship with your friends and family is important for you being able to stay mentally healthy and being able to put yourself on a path of sustainable activism. You don't want to do a full-on sprint for the next 10 months and then burn out, and then you've also burned a bunch of bridges with your friends and family because you were yelling at them or something. So it's really important to be mindful of this. All right, now we're going to move on to the social media part of this presentation. And so I want you all to do me a quick favor and just close your eyes, okay? Imagine yourself as a pig. You are a pig who is being raised in a factory farm in the middle of Iowa. And then one day, you know nothing but cruelty and sadness over the course of your life. But then one day you are put onto a truck, an unremarkable truck, and just start going. It could be the middle of winter and it's freezing cold. And you go all the way to Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, you pull up to some unremarkable building. Just imagine this unremarkable, boring looking building. They open up the gates, and then you enter into this facility. They open the door, and then they start bringing you out aggressively, and I'm not going to get into the details, but you end up dead and slaughtered and eventually eaten. And now you can open your eyes if you haven't opened them already. And now this is the story that I told about this pig who I have named Terry. Okay. A number of years ago, I was at an Animal Save rally in Los Angeles, and I was filming pigs as they were entering, as they were pulling up outside of a slaughterhouse in downtown Los Angeles. And I made eye contact with this pig for a solid 60 seconds. They were confused, they were scared, and moments after this video was taken, they were dead. And for centuries, animals had almost no way of their stories being told. But today, it is an entirely different landscape. This pig, who I've named Terry has not died in vain. Terry's story has carried on and been seen hundreds of thousands of times, which I am 100% confident in. It has inspired hundreds or thousands of people to make more compassionate choices for animals. And that is the world that we live in today with social media. We can take these animal stories and amplify them. We can get people to hear about what animals endure and to create a better world for them. So what is social media really good for? It's good for a lot of things, particularly education and awareness. We have to remember that the vast majority of people don't know what farm animals endure day to day. Okay, you go to the grocery store, and if you were to stand in the animal meat section and people are picking up chicken, if you ask people, hey, do you know what happens to chickens? Do you know that these 3 things happen to them? The vast majority of people are not going to know this. Okay, most people don't know the true horrors that farm animals face, which is why social media provides us a really great way to educate the general public and to raise awareness. It's also good for brand building if you are somebody who wants to really take your advocacy to the next level. And it's really good for campaigns. And so if you have a particular campaign in mind, like for example, if you want to get your local grocery store to offer more, a particular vegan item, you can launch campaigns, and social media is a great place to be. And why? Because social media is the new frontier for animal rights. It's the new town square where everybody is. So how much time is reasonable to spend on social media? You want to strike a balance between the platform, or between the value you find in it, the amount of resources you have at hand, so the amount of time and money, especially time, and of course your level of comfortability. Now, if you never touched TikTok and I just said, hey, get on TikTok right now, I mean, that could be overwhelming, and you don't know how TikTok works and you don't know the value of it, and that's problematic. So you have to find the right balance between all of this when you're thinking about how much time to use on social media and which platforms to focus on. And the potential of social media really is boundless. My posts on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, those are the 3 platforms I'm most active on, by the way: Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. My posts have been seen hundreds of millions of times, something like 50 to 100,000 times a day. My tweets, Instagram posts, and Facebook posts are seen. Now the thing is, it's not magic. I'm not paying for ads. I am not a magician. I do not have a PhD in social media science. I am just a normal person who looked at the social media landscape over the course of years and tinkered my approach. And over time, I eventually created, a setup where I can have a lot of reach for animals. And so, you don't need to be reaching millions of people to be making a difference. If you reach dozens of people, that is better than reaching nobody. Dozens of people is going to make a really big difference in your efforts for animals. And social media, and even if you are involved with other forms of advocacy, social media is a really great way to supplement that activism. And it's especially vital in these times during the pandemic where people are really spending a lot more time on their phones. I know things are starting to change a little bit more now with things opening up, but it's certainly been true for a while. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the nitty gritty, so please forgive me here. But it's important to think about these two metrics when you're thinking about what to pay attention to when you're using social media advocacy. And that's growth and that's reach. Growth is essentially how many more followers you are getting. And why is it important? It isn't important because it makes you look cool or something. It's important because more followers means more eyeballs on your content. So when you tweet to 1,000 followers instead of 100 followers, that's 10 times the potential people who could see your tweet and then retweet your tweet and then have your tweet seen by more people. And then reach is essentially how many people are you reaching? And that's the heart of activism, right? Reaching people. And so reach is so incredibly important. Reach equals more eyeballs, which means more impact. And these things all tie in together. Growth, reach, and of course engagement, which is actually what is defined as likes and comments and shares and so on. Basically, how people are engaging with your posts. So let's talk about effective strategy in the age of social media. And Jonathan, I am watching the clock, so I think we should be able to have this part done in 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll open up the Q&A for as long as we want. Seven. Okay. All right. Sure. Okay. Well, let's go right through this. First of all, figure out what your niche is on social media and set goals for yourself. Manage expectations. Your advocacy is going to start out really slow in the beginning. So definitely be mindful of that. And then, of course, it's you versus the algorithm, okay? The algorithm is essentially what makes your posts be seen by people. And so you really need to be focusing on posting content that's going to perform well. Otherwise, nobody's going to see your content. Always put yourself in your audience's shoes. Post consistently. So I really recommend scheduling posts in advance. I usually schedule posts 1 or 2 weeks in advance. The small stuff matters, so have a good bio, use the link, choose your profile photos carefully. And then, of course, effective social media activism is not just about posting, it's also about engaging. Work to empower and inspire your audience, not just depress them. I mean, getting people to see the hard reality of what animals are facing, that is important, and I want you to do that. And you will depress people at times, but don't just do that exclusively day after day. So don't go all in on any single emotion. And then, of course, don't be a jerk. When is the last time you saw someone being a jerk in real life or on social media and said, I want to be like that person? Probably never. And so it's really important to take a deep breath and cool down for a few moments if you start getting heated. General guidance in the big four, which are Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Twitter is very quick, very community-minded, so you can find lots of communities based on whatever your interests are. I love Twitter. Twitter is a very unique place. A lot of people love it or hate it. Facebook is great because there's so many users and the potential is so great of reaching lots of people because of the share button. And that's actually with Twitter too, is the retweet button allows your posts to be seen by exponentially more people. Instagram doesn't have a share function, so that kind of sucks about it. But the other good thing about Instagram is it's very popular with young people, and that's the same with TikTok. And young people are the future, and so reaching young people with a message of compassion for animals is important. And if you have content that works well with like TikTok, which is very like entertainment focused, then you should definitely do it. That doesn't really work well for me, which is why I don't spend that much time on TikTok. I'm not necessarily an entertainer in a way. I'm not doing dance challenges, but if you can figure out a way to tie your activism into something that's entertaining, TikTok is a great platform for that. I'm just gonna barrel through these. Which actions to take on social media? Share posts from others. engage in dialogue. So engaging in dialogue is so incredibly important. So here I actually am responding to, at the time, I think he was the head of agriculture in the UK, named Michael Gove, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And he was promoting milk, which I thought was odd given that milk harms the environment. And so I kind of called him out on it. My tweet ended up getting more engagement than his tweet, which I felt very proud of. But that was because I engaged in dialogue with him. Post your origin story. I already talked about my origin story earlier. People want to hear about your origin story. They want to hear about why you're the activist you are today. Share great plant-based food. Use humor from time to time, and of course, expose cruelty. Talk about your relationships with animals. This was me with my cat. He only had 3 legs, and I love that cat so much. And I talked about him from time to time in the past. Also, I want to mention that I'll be sending Jonathan this presentation later. So if you want to look back, you can look through these a little bit slower than the pace we're going at now. Ask people to take action.
You don't go that fast, John. It's okay.
Okay, cool. Ask people to take action on the platform that they're on. So if you're asking people to if you're on Twitter, don't tell people to go to your Facebook page. Tell people that, for me, I asked people to retweet this, and it was retweeted far and wide. The video ended up getting over 7 million views. And so asking people to take action on the platform they're on is vital. And when in doubt, post photos or videos of piglets, because people love piglets. Know your audience, okay? So something that I think is important is that your audience is always going to be this, it isn't just one type of person, right? For me, I mean, half my audience is vegan, half of them that aren't vegan. And so if I just said, when vegan every single day, I might turn some of my audience off. And so I do get the vegan message in there, but I also am a little bit more ambiguous or vague at times, like when I say stop eating animals. So it's important to really know who your audience is. And keep things short and simple. This is a tweet that was 7 words followed by 1 emoji. And this video is like 3 seconds long, okay? And this tweet was seen by 1 million people. And so you don't need to write a book to get people to think more critically about their choices. For profile photos, I recommend doing something like maybe a little bit professional for Twitter, something your friends and family appreciate for Facebook, and something a little bit on the artsy or edgy side for Instagram. Organize your content. So odds are you have content, right? Like food photos that you've taken. Maybe you went to an animal sanctuary. Maybe you've done some activism. Put that stuff into Google Drive and organize it so that you have something you can always pull from when you're trying to figure out what to post next. Post a blend of different kinds of posts. So think of it like you're making a good smoothie, right? Don't just do photos. Don't just do happy stuff. Do videos, photos, text, links, polls, etc. Do happy stuff, sad stuff, educational, funny. Like really post a blend of stuff so you're always keeping your audience guessing. And don't post too much or too little. Really, if you post too much, people are going to get annoyed. You post too little, people are going to forget you exist. So try and figure out what that middle ground is and go for that. You can just look at this at a later time. When you're thinking about dealing with trolls and endless debates, you really don't want to invest that much time into it. Why? Because it's not a good use of your resources. If you were to engage with every single troll endlessly, you would never get anything done. And you're probably not even going to change your minds. And the worst part is, these people probably don't even care that much about what they're saying. They might not even believe it. They're just trying to get under your skin. So I really don't recommend engaging with trolls too much. I would say just a little bit sometimes. I respond to maybe 5% of trolls, and I'll usually just do 1 message back. That's it. I have 2 mini assignments for you. Spend an hour looking at how successful activists who you look up to use social media. See what they are doing, see what they aren't doing. Remember, you don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You can just look at what's happening out there and learn from it. Then spend 30 minutes looking at your past social media presence, so your own, and see what's working and what isn't. See what posts get a lot of engagement. See what posts got shared a lot. And lastly, I want to offer you all an offer of 25% off my 2 online courses that I've created with Advocacy Collaborative. They are full self-guided online courses. And you can check out all the details at advocacycollab.com. And for being here, sticking through this presentation, I just want to offer you 25% off. So use the code there. If you are interested, feel free to follow up or just enroll at advocacycollab.com. And I think Jonathan will send out more information about this when he sends out the information later. So I want to leave you with a quote before you go to Q&A. And that is a quote from the late, great Maya Angelou. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that is so incredibly important in our animal advocacy, whether it's on the streets or on social media, from behind the screen. You need to make people feel something in order to get them to change. And getting people to change is what is so incredibly vital for us as animal activists. Thank you. Jonathan, I think you're muted.
Yep, I am. Thank you so much. A phrase that we have in the Jewish communities, we say yasher koach, which means sort of like rurit or well done. So really just an excellent presentation. Really, really appreciated it. Eye-opening for me in terms of some of the social media stuff. Really, really, really interesting. I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind if we can go back to the regular screen so everyone can see one another. Okay. So here's how I'd like to be able to run the Q&A, just being respectful of John's time. We got about 15 minutes, I think, roughly speaking. Yes or no, John? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we had a little bit more if we need to.
Okay. Oh, great. So the way that we'd like to be able to do this is twofold. First, if you raise your hand using the little hand icon, I will be glad to call on you. And also, if you want to just directly email or chat me a question, but just to me directly, and I will actually take all the different questions that come my way, and I will sort of aggregate them so we can manage our time most efficiently. So we do actually have some questions coming in, and I actually had, there was one question popped up in my chat box during the talk, which is, you noted that there were 4, 5, 6 things that you said over the course of years that took you down this path. Now, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask you to go through all of that necessarily, but I was wondering if you could just share with us a little bit of what some of those moments were and may have been that brought you to this place.
Sure. So my mom and I would do cat rescue, and so we would do TNR. So we would trap and neuter or spay cats and re-release them. And so there's some moments then with my interactions with animals that really made a big impact on me. It was my advocacy with my mom doing the hunting protests. And then one other I'll mention, I witnessed something that was potentially animal cruelty. Fortunately, the thing that this person who I went to school with tried doing to an animal didn't happen. And I won't get into details. I'm just trying to want to put any visions in people's head. But I was in middle school and somebody tried being extremely cruel to a cat and they failed. But the potential of that happening stuck with me for years, and it's just kept going through my head and going through my head. And I just kept thinking about all the animals out there who, the person doesn't miss, and this cruel thing happened, and that just rang with me for so long. And I often think about that experience and how it played out. And I'm very happy that it played out the way it did, and I'm glad that it inspired me in a weird way.
Okay. I am getting questions here, but I'm just also going to offer, does anyone, if you want to raise your hand, please feel free to do so, and I will call on you. Oh, there we go. Hey, Ryan.
Hey everyone. Hey John, thanks so much for this presentation. It's amazing listening to it. My question for you is, how do you kind of balance mental health with posting on social media or being on social media? Because through past experience using myself, let's say I'm posting a lot and I find the more I post, the more I see cruelty and am more in the world of what's going on. So I just wanted to ask how you blend the two.
Really good question, Ryan. And there's a few different approaches I take. So for one, I actually don't expose myself to animal cruelty too frequently. I witnessed animal cruelty years ago, and that made me go vegan. I don't need to expose myself to that anymore. I think if I did that on a regular basis, I would burn out really quickly. And avoiding burnout is quintessential to being a good long-term effective animal advocate. And so actually, if you unfollowed or muted accounts that post graphic content, that's totally fine. If you follow me and you don't want to see posts, animal cruelty posts, yeah, I don't post it that often. I post sad stuff like once or twice a week usually. But if you didn't want to see that, you're not going to hurt my feelings, okay? I understand. And if my job didn't entail getting this content in front of people, I would probably almost never look at it. So I just want to say that I think a lot of animal activists get stuck in this headspace where they're like, I need to watch every new animal factory farming documentary, and I need to engage with every animal cruelty post I see. You don't need to do that, okay? That is going to burn yourself out. And so be better to your own mental health, because it's important for you to be a good animal advocate for the rest of your life, for the next 50, 60, 70 years, not to just go all in for the next 3 months and then you burn out and you have PTSD from all the horrible things you saw. So it's really, that's really important. Also, don't be afraid to take little social media breaks if you want. I wouldn't recommend announcing to the world, hey, I'm getting off of Facebook for next month. I would say maybe just do it. And with scheduling posts, you can actually, and obviously depending on which platforms you're using, but you can actually just schedule posts in advance, and these posts can still go up. So when I go on vacation, which I do, maybe 2 or 3, 4 times a year, for a week or two, I will still have posts scheduled to go up then. And then, I'll jump on Twitter a week or two later and just see, I'm like, oh, I wonder how all these posts did. So it's, I think it's really important to do these little things to protect your own mental health.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, John. And I just want to kind of reflect back that John also noted that in terms of the family dynamic, you made a point of saying, limit your engagement with your family to a point such that it doesn't affect your mental health. I think that's also a really great point. I really appreciated that.
I mean, mental health is so important. I mean, it's, like having it, obviously some things are out of our control, but whatever is within our control, I think it's really important to prioritize doing these little things, like, of course, maintaining good, healthy relationships as well.
Well, thank you. Okay, so Sky.
Hi, thank you so much, John. And kind of going off of what Ryan's question just was and just expanding on that, how do you kind of prevent and resist burnout just in general of being an advocate as a job instead of it, because then it's kind of like your whole life and it's very encompassing, and being any kind of advocate can be very sad, emotional work, just like because you're just fighting the good fight all the time. So how do you kind of balance that, deal with that emotionally?
I'm glad you asked that, Sky. And I'm actually glad you brought up burnout, because I have a friend on this call, Natalie, who is an expert in burnout. She's literally like the expert in burnout. And so maybe Natalie, in the chat, you can put a link to your website or something. so that people can actually follow her on Twitter and learn some of her resources that she provides about avoiding burnout. And so as an animal activist, I try to go into my advocacy every day with a few things in mind. For one, it's that I'm not going to make the vegan world. I'm not going to make the world vegan overnight. I wish I could, but it's not going to happen. In fact, I'm not going to see a vegan life probably not going to see a vegan world in my lifetime. And so it's important to understand that what we can do is that we can make the world a little bit less of a horrible place with our actions. And that those actions add up to a lot. And if we inspire other people to take those same kinds of actions, that is doing something. That is actually making an impact. And so it's really important to have that mindset, because if you don't, every day you're just gonna be disappointed. You're just gonna be so incredibly frustrated. Also, I literally do avoid burnout by not exposing myself to animal cruelty too often. I get tagged in tweets every single day from people like just tagging me in horrible animal cruelty footage. And I don't sit there and watch the whole video from start to finish. I scroll right by that because I want to maintain my own mental health and happiness, because I want to do this long term. And then, of course, maybe this is easier said than done, but seriously, I've said this a couple of times, you need to have the mindset that this is this saying is so overused, but this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so it's so important that if you can just do, 4 hours of activism pretty much every week for the rest of your life, that's amazing. But if you're gonna do 25 hours a week, when on top of your full-time job, on top of your raising your family or whatever, and that's just gonna totally burn you out, you're not gonna, you're gonna burn out in a few months, maybe a couple of years, and then probably never do activism again. I know a lot of ex-activists who they might not even be vegan today, but they just burn themselves out. And so it's so incredibly important to really try to avoid burnout at all costs.
Thank you.
Thanks. Elizabeth.
Hello, hi. Thank you so much, John. Forgive me if you've already addressed this. I'm wondering what is the most effective way for me to be an advocate for animals. For example, on Facebook, I don't do much posting on Facebook, but I'm always tempted to put the animal cruelty video on Facebook, but I don't know if that's as effective as me putting up recipes and the little piglets and the happy things. What would you say, or would it be a combination?
Very good question, Elizabeth. Thank you for asking that. And I think it's important to think about the content that we're posting. And I would recommend posting a blend of different kinds of content and just seeing what seems to resonate more. I would recommend posting the animal cruelty stuff, just doing it very infrequently, especially if most of your audience are not other vegan activists, for example. But also tying things back to you as much as possible, because people, the people who follow you, Elizabeth, care about Elizabeth. Okay, they don't care about random stuff out there. When they're on Facebook and they see your post, they care about what you think about something, maybe your story, your journey. So whenever you can take a post and tie it back to yourself, make that personal connection, that's going to do something to your audience. But then, of course, yes, post recipes and post all the things and see kind of what works better and what doesn't. Unfortunately, there is no simple answer with anything on social media, especially because this is an ever-changing landscape. And so it is important to keep in mind that there is no simple answer, as much as I wish there was.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You for what you do.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, one other thing I want to mention too is that another important way for advocates to make a difference in the world, if they don't want to do activism themselves, or even if they are doing activism themselves, they can donate to groups who are doing really important work, or individuals, or anybody, anywhere you think that your money could go far to help animals, feel free to help that way as well. You know, I know many activists who they basically don't do any activism, but they donate, and they donate a lot, so much so that they actually are funding, you know, multiple positions at major animal charities. And so they don't need to do any activism any day of the week because they're funding other people who are doing it. So there's so many different ways that we can help. And Jonathan, we can go, you know, up until 9:15 or 6:15 on the West Coast if you want to. So just want to throw that out there.
We have one more question here from Natalie, and then I have just a couple to ask, and unless anyone asks anything else, that can bring us to conclusion. But if someone else has a question, as I said, please put it in the chat or raise your hand. So Natalie, please.
Hi. Thank you. Thanks so much, John. That was amazing, as ever. They're really great, and thanks very much for putting the event on. So my question was basically just, we've chatted a bit before, like in New York, we've actually got a vegan mayor for I think the first time, Eric Adams, which is really, I think he prefers to call himself plant-based. He doesn't really like being called vegan, but whatever. So I was kind of wondering what your take was on, like, sort of, we've got our kind of grassroots, like friends and family campaigns, but then how we kind of link that to, you know, maybe leaders in the community or kind of public figures or kind of other organizations that we could like businesses or business leaders or whatever that we could link with and sort of amplify the message and make them kind of meet in the middle, like the friends and family with the, you know, community leaders and things. I just wondered what your reflections might be on that.
Yeah, Eric Adams it's very exciting that he is the mayor of New York City who is plant-based, and I'm friends with a person who works closely with him, and it's pretty amazing to have, because you know most change in activism and advocacy comes from the bottom up, right? Not the top down. And so to have somebody randomly in the top, it's pretty awesome. There's a few other leaders in politics and so on who are also vegan and vegan activists, which is pretty amazing. And so as far as like connecting with community leaders, you know, social media is a really fantastic way of doing that, because most public leaders, community leaders are on social media. And so when you're running campaigns, for example, sometimes you're actually targeting these community leaders. So, you know, I know you're talking about trying to be on their side. I'm trying to talk about targeting them as putting them a target on their back as a campaign target. But the fact of the matter is, pretty much all community leaders are on social media, and they're therefore very reachable. And so if you have something that you want to say to so-and-so politician, reach out to them. There are not that many people reaching out, especially the more local you get. So the more local you get, the smaller the pool of people who could be engaging with a politician. I know we're talking about politics a lot, but this really goes for anything. The more local you can get, the better, and the bigger impact that you could potentially make.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Ilana.
Hello. Thank you so much, for the excellent presentation. And my question is, I love to create recipes and share them with different magazines. And I noticed that whenever I try to do activism or send the message of, about the animals, the magazine will try, to edit or kind of change that message. So I find myself focusing more on the diet, about why it's helpful, why I'm sharing this, with the community. So I would like to know, how can you work with the magazine so you can spread them, your activism or the message, about animals, not so much about the diet, the benefits of diet.
Are you saying you write for the magazine?
I share, I do share, I create the new vegan recipes, and then I share them with the magazine.
Cool.
But, and I always have to write, I write an introduction about, so whenever I focus more about the animals and about activism, I noticed that it's not very welcome, or the message is changed. So I've been focusing more on the diet. Okay, so this
Got it.
recipe is about, it's healthy and it's good for you. And but I want to share more about, I want the activism part, to be stronger, about the animals,
Yeah.
not so much about the diet.
Yeah, very good question. And yeah, I would say that, it's tough if you have maybe one editor in particular who the fact that they're doing this at all is awesome and a good sign. And the fact that you're contributing is a huge, great form of advocacy on your part. So, hats off, round of applause for you, you doing that. That's really amazing. And
Thanks so much.
Yeah. And so, it's tough if you have like an editor or a series of editors who don't really want to go that message. You might want to just try being a bit as subtle as possible. Like maybe instead of saying because of, not that you would say this, but in not saying like this vegan ham prevents, all these pigs from dying in horrible ways in factory farms. Maybe you could say like, we think you'll love it and pigs will love it too. Thumbs up or something, or a pig emoji, like just something. Maybe you'll be a little more subtle, and then see where you're. Try and just read what the editors are okay with and what they're not okay with, and try and walk that fine line and be as say as much as you can in a way that's gonna get you to pass.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so to bring us to kind of fill out our time, we have two lighter questions and a final kind of a little more challenging, serious question. So on the lighter question, someone asked, you were flashing some pictures, and was there a crab eating a cherry?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a request for that picture. So is that going to be in the presentation that I'm then going to get to share with everybody, or can you?
Yeah.
Okay, so just wanted to put out there. Someone said crab eating a cherry. Okay, so we will get that one for you, Susan.
It's one of my favorite videos. It's a screenshot of a video, and it's like a 10-second video of literally a crab eating a cherry, but it's so cute. And what's so important about this is that the vast majority of people don't look at farm animals or animals we eat in ways that are relatable at all. And fish and crustaceans are especially tough because they're so different than us. It's really hard to relate to them. So to see this crab is eating like cherry, bite by bite of this cherry is a way that gets people to look at them in the same way they might look at a cute picture of a puppy or a kitten. And so that's a video that I've posted from time to time, and it's often performed really well. And I definitely recommend checking that video out when I send it to Jonathan.
Okay, and in the second of the not quite as serious questions, working our way up, you mentioned trying a lot of vegan cheese, and you talked about good vegan cheeses. Now, someone actually said good vegan cheese, question mark, exclamation point, question mark. So just on the total light side, what is your favorite vegan cheese? I'm actually kind of curious to know myself.
Oh, okay. I think there's different cheeses for different occasions. I think all right, so if I'm making my famous, when I say famous, it's total BS, it's totally infamous. My infamous mac and cheese, I use Follow Your Heart cheddar cheese. Okay. I love Follow Your Heart. But if I just want straight up the best cheese on the market, I have to go with Miyoko's. And I recently discovered Miyoko's cream cheese, which I wish I wouldn't have discovered because it is so incredibly good. So if anybody's not had those, highly recommend it.
Okay, thank you. Very good, very good. Now, and to conclude on the more serious side, one of the things that you said is that most people don't know, right? Most people just don't know what's going on out there. And therefore, we have to approach them, from that place. They don't know. Let's inform, let's educate, let's raise awareness. I want to throw out just a contrary point of view, which is, or question, which is it that they don't know, or that people really just don't want to know? Because if it's that they don't know, that's one thing that implies that they're open. If they really don't want to know, you're dealing with a different situation, because it means they've already put up some barriers or resistance. So I'm just curious, you know, how as a question, I mean, how would you address that? Do you think it's that they don't know, or that they just don't want to know? And how do you address the people who don't want to know?
Stellar question, Jonathan. And I think that there is no easy answer to that. I think that it's certainly a combination of people who don't know and don't want to know. I think that what most people assume is that farm animals live decent lives with one bad day. And what most or all of us on this call know is that farm animals live lives of misery from birth to death. And that is the thing that we need to get these other people, the vast majority of the public, to understand. And I think that social media is really great because it's these bite-sized pieces of information that are so quick and really can add up to a lot. And so if somebody sees a tweet, and let's say this video tweet is 30 seconds long, okay? But the video, the part they see is only 3 seconds, okay? And they read like half my caption. That is still gonna make some level of impact, even if they kind of scrolled on by after not wanting to know. And so I think getting people to know whether they want to know it or don't want to know it, or just have absolutely no clue what the truth is, I think you're still going to be able to make an impact on people.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, thank you. Thank you so much. So appreciate your time this evening. So appreciate your passion and your insight, and just the practicality of it, of how to be able to take our message and our passion and our love for animals and to be able to bring it forward. It's a great gift that you give us to be able to kind of do that, so that we can become activists ourselves on whatever level, in whatever way that actually works for us. And I just, again, on behalf of all of us, want to thank you so very much. We will be sharing, just everyone knows, this recording with everybody. As we sent out an email last week, we'll send out an email again. And John, anything that you want to send me, that you wanted to share, that you made reference to, the crab video among them, please include that to me, and we will send it out to everybody on our list here. And again, thank you so very, very much. Yeshikov, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thank you all for your advocacy for animals and for making the world a better place. You know, it can be a sad journey at times, our journey for a better world for animals, but one thing that makes it a little lighter and better is the fact that we can all do it together and, you know, meet and connect with other amazing people here. So give yourselves a round of applause before you all depart.
All righty, thank you all so very much. And John, I look forward to following you on Twitter still.
Yes, see you all on Twitterland.
So John, again, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat now. This is great. I'm looking at the chat.
Yeah. Oh, good. I was hoping that you get a chance to look at it.
It's great.
I had a bunch of messages just come directly to me in terms of questions and so forth.
Great.